Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Empty Pantry. I'm Amy, and I'm here to help you turn your tight budget into delicious meals. Lately, we have been super busy. We've had a lot of social obligations and a lot going on. Not to mention, we just adopted two new puppies. Now, if you've ever had a puppy in the house, or two of them, you realize how much time they take. With that being said, I haven't had a lot of time to make dinner lately. It's got to be something super quick, and it either needs to go on the table or it needs to go in the oven so I can move on to other things. So today I will share 3 recipes with you that I have made for dinner lately. They only take a few minutes to prepare and are super delicious.
First, we'll make a wine-infused pesto chicken. This is an easy chicken from a pan sauce. Then we'll make some Korean beef bowls that have a lot of flexibility and are pretty quick. Then layered beef enchiladas. This is a quick way to make enchiladas when you're in a hurry. Okay, wine-infused pesto chicken. This sounds fancy, but it's literally only a few ingredients and it's very easy to make. So I'm starting on the stovetop with a fry pan with some olive oil in it. I put about 2 tablespoons, just enough to thoroughly coat the bottom. I don't want my chicken sticking to it any more than necessary. Add more oil if you're using a larger pan, or maybe a little bit less if you're using a non-stick, maybe a smaller pan, depending on how much chicken you're making. So tonight I was making 2 large chicken breasts. It was about a pound and a half worth of chicken. You'll see they're quite thick. In hindsight, I wish I would have split these, like filleted them a little bit thinner, because they did take a little bit extra long to cook this way. I had to cut them in half eventually. So I'm just moving them around just a little bit to get oil on the bottom. So hopefully they won't stick too bad. And I'm going to put a little bit of salt and pepper on there. And we're going to cook these for about 5 to 7 minutes each side. We are looking for them to be completely done before moving on to the next step. So, depending on how big your chicken pieces are, you're just going to have to watch the temperature to make sure that they come to temperature. You want them at least 165 degrees, not too much more than that because you don't want them to be super tough. When I was checking mine, they were not cooking as fast as I wanted, and we were very anxious to eat. So, what I did is I cut them in half just to speed up the cooking process a little bit. I cut them like this. I would have preferred to cut them like the long ways, but this was easiest in the pan. So, I cut this in half just to speed it up just a little bit to make sure that they were thoroughly done all the way through. Okay, now they are done and they are to proper temperature. So I'm going to remove them from the pan. And you can see I have lots of brown bits on the bottom of the pan. That's perfectly fine because it's going to add flavor to our pan sauce. You don't want it to burn too much, but a little bit of brown is fine. I'm going to add half a cup of a dry white wine. You could also use chicken broth. If you don't have wine or you don't want to use wine, chicken broth would be just fine for this step. So half a cup of that. I'm just going to move it around the pan and you'll notice that it just takes up all those little brown bits just nice and easy. It's amazing how that works. And once it has reduced down, the liquid is a little bit, about half of what it was, we're going to add the rest of our ingredients. So it's a pesto sauce. So we're going to use 1/4 cup and we're using it straight from the jar, and just kind of eyeballed how much pesto that was. That was like half of that little jar. And then we also need some butter. So we're going to add 4 tablespoons of butter. This adds a nice like creaminess to the sauce. So just put that right in there. And it's all we have to do is get this all mixed up. So we're melting the butter, we're combining all of the ingredients. So it looks like a really nice sauce. Now that my sauce is done, I'm going to put the chicken back in, and I'm just going to take a minute to kind of coat the chicken in my sauce, just kind of moving it around. You could also get a little spoon and kind of pour it over the top of it. You just want every surface of the chicken to be nice and coated. And if it needs to warm up a little bit, this would be your opportunity to warm up that chicken a little bit if it got cooled off sitting over to the side, which it does sometimes. It cools off fairly quickly. So once it's nice and warm, all the surfaces are nice and covered, you're ready to serve it. And this is a delicious chicken dish. And you saw the pan sauce is so easy. Okay, let's make the Korean beef. This has a lot of flexibility. You can serve this with rice. You could serve it with cauliflower rice. That's what I did. You can also serve it as lettuce wraps, absolutely delicious. We did that for lunch one day. Or you could throw it in with some spaghetti to make like an Asian style noodle dish. Either all of these ways are super good. This meat is delicious. So the sesame oil, I've heated it up. I'm adding 1 pound of lean ground beef. And I'm just going to be chopping that up because I want it to be in small bits and thoroughly cooked. Once I reach that point that it is thoroughly cooked, I'm going to add to this one red bell pepper that has been diced up fairly small, not minced, not super tiny, but a nice dice. And then also to add a little bit of extra color, I took a carrot and I cut it in like a really thin matchstick piece. They cook very fast when they're in this form. So nice and thin, adds a beautiful color to the dish. And then we need some ginger. So we're going to do about 1 tablespoon of fresh ginger. If you're using powdered ginger, you're going to use probably about a teaspoon of dry ginger. And then 1 teaspoon of garlic that is minced. That's equivalent to about 2 cloves of garlic that you put in there. And I'm just going to stir this around, get it nice and thoroughly mixed up. At this point, my carrots and peppers are not cooked, but we'll get to that. And then I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of some brown sugar. And then, of course, we need some soy sauce. So a quarter cup of soy sauce. And then also to add some extra beefy flavor, I'm going to add 1 beef bouillon cube as well as half a cup of water. Now, you could use just half a cup of beef broth if you have that handy. If not, you can use the cube and the water as I did. Okay, so now we have that in there. And I'm going to add a little bit of heat, so some red pepper flakes. This is totally to taste. If you don't want any heat, then just leave them out. If you love heat, then be generous, just shake away. So that is totally up to you how much red pepper you want. The more you add, the hotter this is going to be. Now we need to get those carrots cooked. So you're just going to let it cook, let that liquid be absorbed by some of the vegetables. It's going to thin down as well. And then we still have a lot of liquid, so we need to thicken it up. So we're going to take the 1 tablespoon of cornstarch in a little bowl. We're going to add about 2 tablespoons of water to it. And I'm going to mix that before I pour this into the dish. This is going to act as the thickener, and it thickens up fairly quickly in just a couple of minutes. It's going to get nice and thick. It's going to be a sauce for our dish, which is really nice for the pasta or rice or whatever you put it with. And then once that sauce has thickened up, my carrots and my bell peppers are softened, I am ready to serve it. So depending on how you choose to serve it, this night, like I said, I served it with some cauli rice. You just put the cauli rice down, or rice or whatever you're using, and then put it on top. And for some extra flavor and color, I top it with some sliced green onions and a few toasted sesame seeds. Okay, now for some beef enchiladas, but a way easier version of them that is way easier to prepare and not so much effort. So, starting with some ground beef, we have 1 pound of ground beef, and I'm going to fry that up with about half of an onion that I have chopped up. You can use whatever color of onion you like. We just want to get it completely, thoroughly cooked. And once that meat is nice and browned and cooked, we need to add some flavor to it because right now it's pretty bland. So I'm going to use some taco seasoning. If you have a packet, this is equivalent to 1 packet of taco seasoning. This was homemade taco seasoning, and so I used about 3 teaspoons worth of taco seasoning for the 1 pound of ground beef. That was a really flavorful amount. So that's how much we want to add, about 3 teaspoons or 1 packet. And we're done with the meat, so we just need to get this mixed up before we start layering our enchiladas. So once it's all mixed up and combined, just take it off the stove and pull out your casserole dish. So I'm going to use 1 small can of enchilada sauce. This is a smaller can. And I'm just going to put just a little bit on the bottom. This helps so that the bottom tortillas don't stick to the bottom too bad. So just a little bit, maybe, I don't know, there's probably like a teaspoon or something. And then this night, I was being healthy and using some no carb tortillas, and they are the flour type. So the flour type are going to absorb the liquid and become softer and cooked a lot faster than the corn variety. So that's a little tip on this to use flour tortillas. I had a little soft taco size, so I needed more of them to create my layers. If you had large tortillas, depending on your dish, in a 9 by 9, you probably just need one tortilla per layer. So, however, depending on what size you have, if you need to tear them up, that's totally fine. You just want to make a nice layer. And then on top of that, we're going to add some ground beef. I'm going to do a couple of layers, like three. So I'm going to eyeball a third of my meat, spread it around. And then once I have that spread around, I'm going to add just a little bit of enchilada sauce. Keep in mind, we want to get those tortillas nice and wet. So a little bit of enchilada sauce is going to go between each layer. Not a ton, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Just throw some on there. And then, of course, we need some cheese. So I have one bag of shredded Mexican cheese. I'm going to take about a third of it and sprinkle that over the top. And you can add more cheese. If you love cheese, then go for it. Add maybe double cheese, whatever you like. But this was in the fridge, and so this is how much I was using. And then you're just going to repeat the layers until all of your ingredients are gone. Now, that will totally depend on how big of pan you have. So for this night, I did like 3 layers, and then my final layer was enchilada sauce completely covering my tortillas, and then the rest of the cheese that I had goes on top. And then into the oven, this goes at 375 for about 20-25 minutes, just so it's nice and bubbly. All the ingredients are cooked. You're just looking for it to thoroughly melt the cheese and get nice and warm. And you can top it with some cilantro, sour cream, whatever you like on your enchiladas. This is so fast and so easy. It took me less than 5 minutes to put together, and then I was off while this was baking in the oven.
Well, there you go. There are 3 recipes that only take a few minutes to prepare. So for those busy nights when you don't have a lot of time to be in the kitchen, I hope that these come to your rescue. If you have the opportunity, I know you're busy. I'd love to hear in the comments below what you made. Maybe you tweaked it a little bit. I'd love to hear about that as well. And as always, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I have so many more recipes to share with you. So until next time, happy cooking. Bye.